talk
Oh,
was
great.
really
Yeah.
good. And then palynology is always like people find it like मेरा बॉटनी नहीं था, मुझे कुछ समझ में नहीं आएगा, मैम मेरा बायोलॉजी नहीं
Yes.
था, मुझे समझ में नहीं आएगा. So it was really good. So there are many questions. Okay. So first is you talked about beyond the relevant pollen dispersion area, the occurrence of pollen is not important. Can you throw some light on this, right? You said that beyond that relevant area, pollen dispersion area, the occurrence of pollen is not important. So, how we should take it, right? So, if it goes beyond that
Yes.
area, we
अभी
are not
रुकना
going to
थोड़ी, मैं
consent.
थोड़ी देर से बात करती हूँ.
Okay. I talked about the relevant source area of pollen.
Yeah.
While in this relevant source area of pollen is the distance till which the pollen can be dispersed. Like if you won't find any pollen from that after crossing that distance for that particular vegetation. So
Okay.
obviously, if you won't find any pollen of that plant, you won't find that taxa. Like that taxa won't be there present. So there is a specific distance till which a pollen can be dispersed, and that specific distance is for a specific plant. Every plant has a specific relevant source area of pollen, like the zone in which we will find that pollen. So that distance has to be estimated, which is based on this model.
Okay. Then there is second question. Uh, the fact that vegetation pollen can be sourced from several directions, does it not complicate the employability of the proxy? Like you get it from every other direction. So doesn't it increase the complexity or does not it complicate the employability of the proxy? So there'll be many directions
Yes,
from which the pollens are coming, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is why we take that concentric ring survey structure, and we
Yes.
have to look over all the directions, whether it's north, west, south, east, and as well as the diagonal directions. So this is why this vegetation survey protocol has been prepared, so that we don't miss out any direction from where the pollen is coming in the sedimentary basin. So yes, this is very important. We have to see the direction from where the pollen is coming, and that is why we make the community maps so as to know in which direction which plant community is existing. All
Okay.
these information is given to a model, then only we get the quantitative estimate of the vegetation reconstruction. So
So
this is
does
very
that
important
mean,
aspect we have to
Jyoti,
look.
that you can't skip the concentric
Hmm.
survey? You have to have it, right? If
No, that yes, definite. This is the major step and the preliminary step which we have
yeah.
to take up before
So
doing
if
this
your
model pollen
data is not
quantification
like
also.
that, you can't. So if your data is not collected that way, you can't trust on that data, right? Does that does
No,
that?
I won't say, yes, the protocol has to be followed for quantification analysis. What we have done is the qualitative work till now,
Okay.
like, okay, these tags, if I have around 20% of poaceae pollen, that doesn't mean that 20% of the vegetation is showing poaceae family.
Okay. Okay.
That is not a linear relationship in terms of qualitative estimate. But when we are doing spatial distribution of the vegetation, we have to see this particular protocol, then only we can say, okay, this patch, okay, this much percentage is the poaceae pollen, this much percentage is the fagaceae or any other species pollen. So for getting a realized or the quantitative estimate, we require this approach. Otherwise, what we are doing is the qualitative analysis. Like we
So
can say this plant is present, how much is there, that we can't presume.
so
This is
pura.
dominant, this is abundant, we say that.
So
Yes,
if we want a bigger picture, we have to go by that
yes,
model, right? Okay.
yes.
Then there is
If
one
we want
more.
an accurate and a precise picture.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
My just one, I'll just extend it. So then I was just going to say, so that how do you decide how much is your, the radius of your sampling going to be? Because you said concentric data you need to collect. So what is the radius, and
Yes, yes.
what does this radius depend upon?
Hmm. Yes, that radius depends on the homogeneous plant pattern which is found in that site that we get from the Google Earth images or GIS images. From that, first we have to locate how many sites we can take. Suppose the vegetation cover is very dense and it covers around 5 kilometers stretch in the radius of 5 kilometers, then we can take that 5 kilometers as the radius. If the vegetation is very patchy, like we have mosaics of vegetation, we can take around 1 kilometer radius. That depends on the structure of the basin you're studying. So it all depends. It can change from 1 kilometer to 5 kilometer maximum.
So what we can say is that this is like reconnaissance survey we do on field. You have to have
Yes, yes,
that
yes,
reconnaissance through GIS,
yes,
remote sensing, and all, and then that is how
yes,
you can plan your further studies. Okay, so
yes.
there is one more. Okay, um, in the past, the vegetation was so different. Can we use the same model for past vegetation to find out whatever was the distribution of the vegetation in the past? So right now we are dealing with
Yes,
only
we can do.
Holocene, right? So if we go beyond
Yes.
Holocene, can we use the same models? That is what was asked.
Right, definitely. Like we can't go up to the deep time. Like we are talking about Holocene or late Quaternary type span when the landscapes were similar, like post LGM. Before that, it has not been tested till now, and we have to take care of the topography of the of the system also. So this model only works in the Holocene or the late Quaternary time span. For deep time, we need to apply other models, or we need to apply other techniques, or the some semi-quantitative approaches are there which have been applying in the Paleocene, Eocene time span, like the species diversity index and all these things we apply, but quantitative estimation is still not been developed from this model for deep time.
Okay, there is one in the chat box which I can see.
Yes, yes.
Someone is asking, we have taken pollen density as 1. We are considering pollen density as 1. Why is it so? So it is like why density of pollen is considered as 1? Is it applicable for all sort of pollen?
Okay.
Does it create some error margin in the
It
data?
is the mean.
Okay, okay,
Yes, it is the mean of the pollen density, which is studied on the basis of Stokes' law. So it is an
okay.
assumption, like it's not the exact pollen density, but it's the mean of whatever pollen we get in the, like most of the pollen, they are wind pollinated. So on the basis of that, there is an assumption, and the mean of that pollen density comes to 1. So there is an error, but not that much that we can't take. So pollen density can be taken as 1.
But then, Jyoti, can we use the same density for
Yes.
older records? Like for Holocene, we will consider it as 1.
Uh,
What about the pollens
Yes,
which we find in older sediments?
well, I would say like pollen productivity and the pollen structure, the density doesn't vary. This is a physiological aspect. So it could
Okay,
be taken as 1.
okay, okay. Okay, so we are flooding with questions, there are some
Yeah,
more.
yes.
Okay, how useful are pollen in determining short-term climate change events? For example, climate change due to volcanic eruption. So, can we use them to determine such kind of events?
Yes, this is possible. Like in Holocene, we have very abrupt climatic events like 8.2 K event. And in my pollen record, I have seen there's a drastic change in the vegetation community, drastic decline in when we take about mangroves or tropical evergreen, tropical deciduous plant species. All these plants, they react they respond very quickly to these abrupt climatic events. As we see, there is a decline in the palynological data. So it is essential, like we can look for these climatic events also on the basis of pollen data. And they are very well marked in various papers also you will find. So they can be taken. And
Rahul
even in
sir,
the
you
past
want to
time,
talk something? You
yes,
want
yes.
to add something. Rajni, can you unmute
Yes,
him?
I also want to add, like, if you're talking about deep time in the Paleocene, Eocene thermal maximum time, also there is one study which we conducted, and there we saw a vegetation turnover, like pre-PTM and the post-PTM. Biodiversity was abruptly changed on from by this PTM event. So yes, pollen analysis gives very promising and some good results in when we talk about these climatic events also.
That's what I wanted to refer, Jyoti.
Yes. Any
Your
other? Yes.
PTM study in the Rani
Yes, sir.
Khasura area is really a remarkable one, where you have used
Yes, sir.
Napa pollen to document the change in
Yes, sir.
climate. That is the extreme warm climate of the early Eocene and later slightly cooler climate. So that fluctuation was documented by your Napa pollen distribution only. That was a very remarkable study that I wanted to
Yes,
point
sir.
out, and that you have not shown here.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. I just missed it because maybe I am studying about Holocene and
Yeah.
I couldn't gather it in the last one. Thank you so much, sir.
But that was a remarkable report of deep time based on pollen climatic fluctuations.
Okay. So Nigam sir is asking, is it possible to reconstruct past monsoons using pollens during Holocene? Are there any examples from India?
Past monsoon, yes, on the basis of the pollen, when we see like in the marine sediments, we have studied, and the landward influx, when we see there is a decline in the land influx into the marine environment, then we find like in one of my studies, like it's not been published yet, but I have seen that the terrestrial pollen assemblage has been showing that shift based on the monsoonal pattern in the land. So obviously, on the basis of these pollen per proxy, we can say what kind of climate or monsoonal pattern has been experienced in the adjacent landmass. So it is possible on the basis of pollen, we can say past monsoon changes can be interpreted, and it is based mainly on the terrestrial pollen, whether it's mangroves or tropical evergreen or herbaceous plant. We take all the pollen in the category of terrestrial pollen.
Okay. So in
Jyoti,
continuation.
Jyoti, there are
Yes,
examples. I was expecting Indian examples you might have included in
Oh.
here. One campus paper or Caratinis paper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can take that. Karatini in 1994, they have developed a very good record from the off Karwar coast marine sediment, marine core record. And in that, we say a major shift in the vegetation pattern from before 3.5 Ka and after 3.5 Ka. So this is also a major path breaking work, which we say on the basis of pollen, we can say what is the monsoonal pattern in the adjacent landmass or in the continental region. So yes, sir, there are many
That-
papers, and maybe I skipped some.
That core was collected by me. First, we published
Oh,
foraminifera
sir.
on this 2500 boundary, and we only gave samples
Yes,
to
sir. Yes, sir.
Keratini, on which he
Oh,
published 2 papers.
sir, I have been. Yes, sir. I have been studying that paper, and after that, based on that research, we collected a core from Kali River estuary, just along
When
that transit from the Kali River estuary.
You collected from estuary itself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
And in that, the pollen assemblage is showing a dramatic decline around 3,500 time span, that boundary. So this is what they have also, but the vegetation composition is very different. Like we are getting lots of mangroves also, along with evergreen and even fern spores I got in my record. And we are going for more dates, so to like nail that time span in
Yeah.
showing that vegetation composition change.
Dr. Nilek Khare's PhD on that core of Kali River mouth.
Oh, that's great, sir.
Okay.
Next question. Next
yeah,
question.
in continuation with this climate change, you have one more question. Is it possible to understand pollution level on the basis of pollen?
Yes, pollen pollution level, for pollution level, we have to take into consideration other parameters like some geochemical parameters, some nutrient analysis. On the basis of that, the mangrove composition, especially the mangrove composition, can change. Like some plants, they are habitual to environmental stress conditions. Like when we talk about mangroves, there are some plants which are like able to survive in high environmental and pollution states also. So based on that we can say, but we need other proxies also to support that pollen data. Not on the basis of pollen itself we can analyze, like biomarkers or nutrient analysis. After that only we can talk about pollution.
Dr. Bandana Sawant wants to ask something. Dr. Bandana Sawant?
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Good morning. As Jyoti's was a really very nice presentation, and
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
very
so much.
much for giving so nice presentation. I just want to ask that regarding the modern pollen data of Central India, as you are working naturine and
Yes.
coastal conditions, is there any data available of the modern pollen plants and pollen from the Central India? Actually, I am here, and so far I see that nobody is working here on palynology,
Yes,
especially
ma'am.
in Central India. So I think that data is also very important, because here we have good vegetation. And then if I try to do some of the lakes in this part, try to study some of the lakes, and data is very good, but modern pollen data as such is not available. So I think that if it is not there, that work can be taken up, so that we can do the lake studies and then interpretation of past climates, say, on the basis of this, because here we are very good lakes also, and vegetation is also. So first we'll have to study the what is the modern pollen data of this
Yes.
part, and then we can take up in the deep time.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with you, ma'am. And it's a good news for everyone that we, this time in our next plan, we have proposed such lakes from Central India, including the core monsoon zone and the central Ganga plain. And we have highlighted some of the lakes in which we will be studying the modern pollen quantification and developing the plant productivities. And we are also establishing this quantification technique based on the Central India. Yes, ma'am, there is scarcity of data. I agree with that. And we are, in the future, you will definitely find new work from BSIP on this approach.
Sure.
And
Sure.
yes, ma'am, definitely, ma'am.
So I would like to be, if it is possible, I would like to be part of that because I am very
Sure,
much
ma'am.
interested. I have studied some of the lakes and says in situ pelinomorphs, you can say
Yes,
pediastrum
ma'am.
and other things. What I have studied
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
lakes, that at some levels they are showing very drastic increase in size. Maybe it is related to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
input, nutrient input in the lake. So so I think that that work can be taken up
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
with collaboration with some good institutes like you, so that in the last
Sure,
200
ma'am.
300 years, what is the input into the lakes, and is it pollution and other monsoonal factors which are contributing to a sudden increase in some of the in situ microorganisms.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that can be taken up.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I think
Dr.
that-
Jyoti, you can make your presentation more attractive by adding Indian examples about application. I will tell you one example. Dr. Rahul Garg has
Yes.
taken a lot of samples, developed a MOU with NIO, and one paper in which your present director also is a author, where we try to correlate the reconstruction made through pollens about the coastal hypoxia, which is directly related to the fisheries out. Okay, so how pollen studies can
Yeah.
lead to know about fisheries output. Normally people will never think that by pollen studies
Yes,
you can
sir.
talk about marine fisheries. But there is an example to include those type of work.
Yes, sir.
in your presentation next time when you come. It's a good presentation. I must congratulate you.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I will
There are
try
a
to
few more
follow it.
questions. There are a few more questions, Jyoti. You're not free.
Yes,
One
yes,
question by
now, no.
Shweta, the
Yeah,
question by
yeah,
Malkeet
Yeah.
Singh.
yeah. There is a question by Malkeet Singh. What do pollen data reveal in the Himalayas? Can different sequences be correlated using pollens?
Yes, on the basis of like whatever studies in the Himalayas, we can relate to various events in the Himalayas also on the basis of pollen. And for that, we have to have a good along the transit, we have to have good cores and good sections from where we get the pollen data. And yes, the productivity should be there in the samples also. That is a key thing which we have to take care while collection in the field. So
Uh,
yes, pollen can be taken up. Yes.
Would you be aware of any results that have been generated? Anything that has been indicated in the
Uh,
Himalayas on basis of pollens? What kind of studies or what kind of results have been obtained in the Himalayas? Would you have any idea?
there are studies from the Eastern Himalayas by like in our group in BSIP also, like researchers are working, and along with the in the glaciers as well from Nawaz Ali, we have papers of Nawaz also, and Firoz Kamar. They have also published a few papers based on studies in the Himalayas, and even in the Western Himalayas, Eastern, Western, both Himalayas, we have a group working on the palynology, and yes, we have papers on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is one more. So mainly you talked about Holocene, So if we talk about older sediments, how do diagenesis and sedimentation complicate the studies? So if you have diagenetic processes coming in, how it
Yes.
affects the study?
Yes. After diagenetic analysis, yes, there is the preservation of that pollen just does get affected because pollen is preserved in an anoxic environmental condition. So sometimes like we have to depend on other proxies to give the vegetation reconstruction. It could be delta C13 or biomarker analysis. So pollen preservation gets hampered sometimes in the older sediments.
Okay. So I would like to ask, this is my question, Jyoti now. Okay. So if
Yes.
you are looking through microscope, how you are so sure about
Yeah.
their pollens? Sometimes, so especially when you are dealing with sediments which are
Yes.
Cretaceous in age or which are Jurassic in age, and how you are so
Yeah.
sure about their pollens? So can you throw some light
Mm.
on that? Like for MSc students,
Yes,
I'm
yes,
asking because for
yes.
them,
I'll start with the basic. Yes. Because when we see in the microscope, the first, if anything which is of a regular structure, as I told in my talk also, we have to take care of the shape of the pollen. So after a thorough study of pollen morphology, we will find a definite structure. It should not be very irregular, like definite structure. It could be circular, it could be oblong, prolate. There are different structures. It could be sometimes there are pentaporate also pollens. So we have different structures. After studying the pollen morphology only, we should sit on the microscope and see the palynological slides. So whenever there is a pollen, we have to see the aperture basically. The pollen, a specific pollen has specific aperture and a shape. So first
yes.
see the shape. If you get the shape, then you come down to the aperture. If it's a pore or a colpi, there are two types of apertures. Then you come down to how many apertures are there. That will obviously specify which family that pollen belongs to. So there are sequence of steps which we have to follow when we see any specimen under the microscope. So pollen morphology is utmost important for studying pollen, and with that only we identify whether it's a pollen or any other palynomorph.
Okay, one question here, because I've seen a lot of students, what they're doing is they just centrifuge the sample. If you can say about
Okay.
maceration, basic, because when master
Yes, yes.
students are dealing with pollen, okay, what is the basic methodology that they should adopt, and they should not fall into
Hmm.
traps of wrong and easy methods. So a little bit about the maceration.
Yes. like first, when you have the sediment sample, you take around 2 to 5 grams. Like if you have more, minimum 2 gram sample is required for maceration, for extraction of pollen from the sediment. And that 2 gram sample is soaked in deionized water or distilled water. And then we add potassium hydroxide, that should be 10%. The potassium hydroxide, what it does, it disintegrates the inorganic and the organic component in the sediment. So that is very important. That is a key step. If you don't use KOH, then that disintegration won't happen, and your pollen and spores will be having a lot of inorganic material attached to it, and it is very hard to identify them. So boiling in 10% KOH is essential. And after doing that step, like we have to boil the sample in KOH for around 5 minutes. After that, we have to sieve the sample with 100 micron sieve. 100 micron sieve, when we sieve the samples, whatever filtrate we get, we keep this, the filtrate for settling down. After the filtrate settles down and all the sediment with the pollen and spores, which is essential, that settles down, we decant the sample and we remove the KOH by 1 or 2 decants. After removing the KOH, we add hydrofluoric acid, that could be around 40 to 48%. That hydrofluoric acid is required for sand digestion. Now, this sand digestion is a key process, and this could be skipped if the sediment is very clay, like it's clay. If there is sand, then only use HF. Otherwise, you can simply sieve the sample with 7 micron sieve, 7 to 10 micron sieve straight away, and whatever residue you get, you see it under the microscope. Now we have developed another modified eco-friendly methodology of standard pollen extraction step, in which we are not doing acetylysis. Acetylysis is a step which is used for digesting the cellulose content of the sporopollenin, so that it is easily to identify. But in the deep time, we don't use acetylysis. Still, I have seen, we can see the pollen structures very clearly. So in the quaternary time also, we started using this. And now we have like my guide herself, she has reported that technique as an eco-friendly modified standard preparation technique of pollen analysis, in which we are not acetylizing the samples, and we can see the pollen and spores very clearly, and we can see the structures also, because this acetylysis technique is harmful. Like we are throwing so much of acid in the groundwater system, and we are also harming the environment, and it is harming our system, our respiratory system also. So the students can take up this approach, and this is very beneficial. But the 2 steps, KOH and the HF, that is the utmost important. Wash the samples, the more clear they get. So sieving is very important.
This was really nice, you elaborated it really well.
Okay. Yes.
I think Dr. Vanzarwadkar wants to ask something.
I'm going into more detail.
No, we needed it. Dr. Vanzarwadkar, if you can unmute yourself, you wanted to ask something.
Yeah, ma'am. I actually written on in the chat box also, but I will now you have given me chance, so I'll ask. In pollen studies, pollen and spore studies, if I am getting a particular type of species, can I directly relate it to a certain particular plant? Because nowadays, if you see, the seeds are known as, or the spores, pollens are known as directly by the names of the trees. I suppose like this. And is it possible, or is it the same case in the past time? Maybe it Holocene, or maybe in the deeper time, older time. So I'm getting certain pollens, and directly I can relate to the names of those trees, because they are the part of the tree. In other case, in fauna, in other cases, we directly give the name to the species, and they are actually the animals or the fauna. But in his case, sometimes they are plant classics, that is spore pollen or the leaves. They are not the exactly tree.
Yes.
So how we can relate these two? Because this is a very basic question for you, but this is new for me and for the students.
Yes. So I will definitely take it. And yes, sir, pollen is the male gametophyte. It comes from the male gametophyte of the plant. that is from the anther. So pollen is a part of that plant, and every single plant species has a specific pollen type. So yes, if you are able to identify that pollen, and based on that identification, you can name that pollen as that pollen of that particular plant. It is possible, but that identification should be very accurate. Like if you talk about justicia, it's a pollen, like it's a plant from Acanthaceae family. It has a typical exine pattern, typical wall structure. So if you identify the pollen with the accuracy, you can name that plant also on the basis of that pollen. Yes.
Next question, Shweta, your next
Okay.
question.
Next question is for MSc students. Okay, so you talked about these models, love model and all. So for MSc student, for their dissertation, what they should think of taking up as a problem, you know? So every time they think of putting some proposal, they are like,
Yes.
we are so confused what to do. So can you suggest some things where they can put on their feet, as in research में
Yes.
आने के लिए कुछ तो शुरुआत के लिए?
For
Yes, yes.
example, I'll just give an
Yes,
example. Like
definitely. Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Nigam or Dr. Hussain, like for example, they talked about some morphometric parameters. You don't need to
Yes.
go into the identification.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
just by probably developing certain ratios. So small
Yes.
things which can probably give them a feel and they can start with. Any simple techniques
Yes.
that you would suggest for master students?
Yes. For master students, I would say that surface samples, like if you are choosing an area of study, you can first go for surface sample studies. Go to the field, collect the surface samples. As I have mentioned in one of the slides, you can collect moss cushions, you can put pollen traps, or simple collect surface samples. And that surface sample could be collected, like if you are taking an estuary, you can go to the estuary and collect the samples from the landward end to the estuary or river mouth. And then you also see some vegetation data. Like don't go into the model technique, that is a very laborious exercise and we need a good team for that. So that could be taken in your research work, but for dissertation level, you can make a pollen vegetation relationship on the basis of semi-quantitative techniques. Like one technique is the species abundance technique, in which we see the ratio of the pollen present in the fossil, in the sample, and the vegetation, and with that we derive that ratio. So simple techniques like collection of surface sediment samples would be helping in their analysis. And obviously the main approach, another one is the living fossil study. That is also very important. We have to collect, you can go and collect flower buds. Like when you go for any field, just collect the flower buds, astralize those buds and study the structure of the pollen grains, and then you try to trace to what plant species does it belong. This is a very good exercise. This is the first exercise which we give it to the PhD students, because identification is very important in case of pollen or any other fossil proxy.
I think we are done with questions now. Okay, but it was really nice, you know.
Okay.
Many questions have come up,
Yes.
and then even
Thank you.
we see that there is an
I
interest
also
which is.
enjoyed a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so now I asked Amrita Paransby to deliver the vote of thanks. Amrita, you there?
Yeah, I am here. Shweta.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thank Dr. Jyoti for the wonderful talk. I mean, usually in the syllabus, we don't give justice to this important topic. And I'm sure the students have enjoyed your talk and gained a lot of information. And so have I, actually, personally speaking. So it was very nice of you to cover all the aspects of the subject, like right from the basics of palynology, what is a pollen, how does it look like, and how to study them, how to sample for them, and also a special thanks for telling us about the eco-friendly technique for pollen analysis. That was really helpful. Apart from that, you also mentioned about what is the relevant source area of the pollen, so beyond which a pollen occurrence is not important. So that was also very beneficial, I think. And I also thank you for explaining us about the process-based models and the pollen vegetation relation. And how important quantitative approach is to the studies. This is something which I think is lacking in all the research work that we do at the dissertation level, at least. So it was very important that you spoke about that. Thank you so much, Dr. Jyoti, for that.